Hello there, guys. We're going to go to Chapter 10 now. So Chapter 10 is actually similar to what we're going to continue on, what we have been going through testing. So this time what we're going to look at, instead of looking at a population versus a sample and comparing population sample, now what we'll do is compare population versus population. So for example, we could compare Oregon and Washington, Oregon and California. You could compare male versus female. You could compare athletes versus non-athletes. You compare basketball players versus baseball players. So we look at splitting, okay, what are the differences? Are there differences as we look at? To do that, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set up a null alternative hypothesis. We're going to find the test procedure, so that's your alpha value. You're going to collect the data, calculate the test statistic, which is going to be here. We're going to decide whether to reject or not reject, and then we're going to interpret it. What is it? Is it significantly different? Is it less? Is it more? And so on. The biggest thing is this is our new test statistic that we'll be using. Everything else is the same. We're going to start off with a large sample, so we'll use z-score. So x1 and y1, so just as you go through, x1 and x2 is population 1 and population 2. So, like I said, example could be Washington versus Oregon. So we could say we're comparing Washington and Oregon. Okay, then we come down here, we're talking about standard deviation. Okay, so this would be standard deviation. I'll write it out for this one, but standard deviation of population 1 and standard deviation and subset, and this would be the standard deviation of population number 2. So then lastly, when we look at is n. N is your sample size. So n, lowercase, n1 and n2. So sample size of population 1 and sample size of population 2 as we look at it. Just a reminder, here we are going to square a standard deviation, so we square it first and then divide, don't divide and then square. But we'll go through two examples that we'll see. So we're going through the same type of things. Again, this is for a large sample as we go through. So first example that we have is on MasterCards. Okay, so there we go. Do our work there, okay? So it says an advertising executive claims that there is a difference. This right here is what we're testing. Is that there is a difference in the income for Visa Gold and MasterCard Gold. So there is a difference. Is means two-tailed test. So when we go through, we're going to set up our null and alternative right off of that. HO. What we just say is the average of the, and you could say, we said Visa, so I could say the average of the Visa card will be equal to the average of the MasterCard. So you could write it that way so you understand. You could say, instead of Visa and spun out, you could just put a V and an N. You could put 1 and 2. So it doesn't matter how you put that, just put it away. So you could say, does not equal. So instead of V and N. Or you could put 1 and 2. So next we go through, okay? So we set up our null alternative hypothesis. Next we're going to go ahead and set up our alpha value. So we know it's a two-tailed test, so it's going to be up and down. Level 0.05, so it's a two-tailed test, so we're going to divide that by 2. Now, again, this is a large sample, so I just want to point this one out to you. So when we come over here, this is the table that we're going to be using. So it's a large sample, so we're going to be using a z-score, and we want a z-score of 0.05. So 0.05 is right here, 0.05, so we're using 1.96. So I'm going to have 1.96 and negative 1.96. So that's the one that I'm using. I'm not going to use it every time, but we're using a z-score. Then we go ahead and find it. So we come through here, we subtract it. So 60,900, so we're doing our visa minus this one. If you switch the order, that's okay. But just be consistent. So 60,900 minus 64,300. Divided by the square root of our standard deviation, 12,000. And we are going to square that value divided by our sample size of 100. Plus standard deviation of 15,000 squared divided by a population of 100. So when you do that, that is equal to 1.77. So I compare this to that. Is that greater than that? Is it to the right of it? No. So we do not reject. So the claim is that there is a difference in the mean households. We do not reject mean there is no significant difference. So the data suggests the claim the incomes of the claim of the difference in incomes is not true. There is no significant difference. So that claim is incorrect according to the data that we have. We'll go to the second example. The second example that we have is now talking about the daily cost for meals and lodging in Washington versus Texas. So we're saying, okay, the average daily cost for meals and lodging when vacationing in Texas is less than when you're in Washington. So less than then is a one-tailed test. And so we go and say HO, and I'm going to write it this way. Okay, the average for Texas, is less, so we're going to assume and say it's greater than for Washington. Again, you can spell it all out. I like to just say, okay, the average of Texas and the average of Washington. So we go ahead, same thing now, it's a one-tailed test of 0.01. So again, go back to your z-score, look down at 0.01. If you do, you get negative 2.36. So negative 2.326. Now, we're comparing Texas first. So Texas, it's less than, so it's going to be a lower tail test. So we're going to see anything to the left of that, anything less than that. So we go ahead and subtract 184 minus 195 divided by standard deviation, 15, squared, divided by a population of 50, plus our standard deviation of 28 squared, divided by a population of 35. And when you get this, you get negative 2.1, if I remember correctly. Yeah, negative 2.12. So is this value less than that value? No, so we do not reject. So again, go back to our claim. Is that the AAA says that it is less, okay? We do not reject mean there's no significant difference. So again, okay, the data does not support the claim that the cost of meals and lodging is less in Texas versus Washington. So that's what I want to see. All those things are part of it. So you go through and have a couple questions on that off your homework today. We're going through the same setup. So set null and alternative hypothesis. What's your alpha value? Okay. come up with your curve. Okay, tell me, come up with your test statistic. Remember to square those standard deviations. Then compare it, and then reject or do not reject. And then the most important part is, what does it say about the claim? Whatever claim is being said. Does it support the claim? Does it not support the claim? Remember, do not reject means there's not a significant difference. Rejecting means there is a significant difference between those two averages as we work through it.